Coming up, Luka and the Mavs slip by the Boston Celtics, and the Suns blow out the Lakers. This is Locked On Now NBA.
The biggest games, the best performances, expert analysis. You are Locked On Now.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now NBA. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. We've got local experts on the biggest stories on the hardwood. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. We've got a whole cast of NBA hosts that are here to recap all of the action from Sunday, but we're going to start out in Boston, where the Mavs took on the Celtics in our biggest game.
The biggest game.
It was an impressive full team effort on the road Sunday for the Mavericks. Luka, of course, is always impressive, but he got some other names on the team that helped step up and get them the win. Locked On Mavs breaks down how Dallas was able to come back and snap Boston's 5-game win streak.
The Dallas Mavericks came back in a defensive bout to beat the Boston Celtics. Nick Angstead from the Locked On Mavericks podcast here. And it didn't look good for the Dallas Mavericks early. Their offense looked absolutely brutal. The Celtics defense was absolutely doing an incredible job on them, holding them to just 38 points in the first half. But after halftime, with about 9 minutes left in the third quarter, the Celtics had built up a 13-point lead, which felt huge in a game where neither team could score that efficiently. The Mavericks then went on a 19-6 run and ended up scoring 38 points just in the third quarter, and it was a big turnaround from Luka Doncic and Dorian Finney-Smith, who were huge in that quarter. Luka Doncic found a way to finally get into the paint, was able to kick back to shooters. Dorian Finney-Smith hit 3 of his 4 threes in that third quarter. He scored 13 points. He actually outplayed Jason Tatum in the second half. Dorian Finney-Smith did. It was an incredible game for him, a great game for Luka Doncic down the stretch as they closed it out. Spencer Dinwiddie also turned it on at the end, was able to contribute, and the Mavericks go on to win another game and stop another streak, a thing that they keep doing against some of these teams, and they stopped the Celtics' 5-game winning streak. We'll have more on the Locked On Mavericks podcast.
The Celtics retired Kevin Garnett's number 5 on Sunday and had the whole thing spoiled a little bit by a last-second loss to Dallas. Locked On Celtics breaks down the defensive slugfest between these two teams that just didn't end up going Boston's way.
John Corrales here on the TD Garden floor after the Kevin Garnett jersey retirement ceremony. Another retirement ceremony that was ruined by a Boston Celtics loss. Paul Pierce's jersey retirement marred by a big loss to Cleveland, and now the Celtics can't close out the Dallas Mavericks, losing 95-92 on a Spencer Dinwiddie late fourth quarter three-pointer. Celtics and Mavericks, really, it's a slugfest. Two of the best defensive teams since January 1st, so I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that both teams struggled to score. The Celtics, curiously, I think, tried doubling and blitzing Luka Doncic. Personally, I think a little too much, considering that he left the first quarter with some sort of leg issue. He was holding his left hamstring, went back into the locker room, came back out and finished the game, but clearly did not look like he was 100%. But the Celtics kept doubling anyway, and then they were slow to rotate behind him. And that led to some of the Mavs going off and getting some buckets that I think could have been avoidable. Celtics were cold. I think Al Horford was one of the big guys that gave the Celtics a chance, but what ends up happening is Jason Tatum is not able to hit a lot of shots. Jaylen Brown's not able to hit a lot of shots. I mean, makeable shots late that didn't fall. Celtics lose a tough one. Their 5-game winning streak is snapped, and now they hit the road for a tough West Coast swing. This is not going to be an easy one, and they are jockeying for position in the East. So on a night here that the Celtics are celebrating a legend, Kevin Garnett, his number 5 going to the rafters. A little bit of a sour taste in the mouths of fans who had to watch the Celtics lose another last-second loss to the Mavericks. I don't know what it is about these last-second losses to the Mavericks, but here we are once again. I'll be talking about it all and the KG retirement ceremony on the Locked On Celtics podcast. So make sure you are subscribed and watch the show on YouTube.
Trae Young, back in star form, drops 47 points in a win for the Hawks over the Pacers on Sunday. And Locked On Hawks is hoping that this win will translate and keep going forward as this team continues to roll.
Hello friends, my name is Brad Rowland, and the Atlanta Hawks hold serve at home on this Sunday evening, knocking off the Indiana Pacers by a 3-point margin in a game that should not have been that close. To be honest, the Hawks were dominating for the most part in the first half or more of this one. They had a season-high 77 points before halftime. Trae Young had 33 in the first half, ended with 47 points on hyper-efficient shooting in this one. So with all of that said, the offense was really good for the vast majority of the night, but the defense was not for the Hawks, especially in the second half of this contest. And as a result, they let the Pacers hang around, and they were within two or three points for really the last 2 or 3 minutes of this game. And the Pacers had different shots that had the chance to give them the lead or tie the game in the final minutes. They all missed, and the Hawks were able to escape with the victory, but there was still some stuff to work on, let's just say, for the Hawks in this one. Still another win for Atlanta. That's 5 in a row at home and 13 of the last 15 at State Farm Arena. That's something to build on for the Hawks as they return to the floor. Quick turnaround on Monday evening. We'll have much more on this game and the future on the Locked On Hawks podcast.
The shorthanded Pacers mounted a comeback but fell just short to Atlanta over the weekend. Locked On Pacers breaks down that loss but says it all looked much worse than it really was.
Pacers fall to the Hawks in Atlanta 131-128. I'm Tony East, host of Locked On Pacers, here to break down that Pacers loss in Atlanta. Score sounds bad, loss sounds bad, but really, the Pacers played pretty well, all things considered. They only had the minimum available 8 guys in this Hawks game. They were on a back-to-back traveling from San Antonio to Atlanta, so they lose an hour. They also lose an hour for daylight savings, so an exhausted team playing against the Hawks, and 7 of their 8 guys finish in double figures. They come back from 19 down to cut it to 2. They have a chance at the lead late in the game. Couldn't quite get it done, but all things considered, a decent performance for the Pacers, given the context of this game, and given that Trae Young was unbelievable. 47 points for the Hawks star. He was ridiculous. He had 33 points in the first half, the second most by any player ever against the Pacers in a first half. So Halliburton has 25 for the Pacers. Dwayne Washington has 22. Buddy Hield has 25. They get some good performances, but not enough against the Hawks, given all things considered. Not bad from the Pacers, though. We'll break it all down and more on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
The Memphis Grizzlies able to overcome that embarrassing wardrobe malfunction to get a win over Oklahoma City on the road. Locked On Grizzlies recaps the full team win and the return of Dillon Brooks.
The villain has officially returned. Sean Coleman here with the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. Dillon Brooks has officially returned to the Grizzlies starting lineup after being out for more than 2 months with a sprained ankle, but his return was a bit delayed as the Thunder and Grizzlies decided to put out the NBA's version of that Spider-Man gif where 2 Spider-Men are looking at each other. Both teams coming out in white jerseys, delayed the game for about 10 minutes, but once the Grizzlies were able to get in the right uniforms, they got off to a great start. 38 points in the first quarter, contributions from all over the team, 6 players in double digits. Yes, Ja Morant's 23 straight games of 20 or more points. That streak did end, but it was great to see the Grizzlies' overall effort. Yes, there were some defensive lapses, but on offense, the Grizzlies were able to find the balance that they needed in order to be able to get control of the game early, and despite some waves, some surges from the Thunder trying to get back in the game, the Grizzlies were able to withstand the entire way to get a very big victory. Dillon, 15 points, 4 assists, 1 turnover. He was able to acclimate himself to his role in the offense. Zaire Williams was great off the bench. Tyus Jones as well. Another very impressive game from Jaren Jackson Jr. as well as Desmond Bane. The Grizzlies showed that they don't need Ja Morant to score 30 points night in and night out for them to find the success that they needed to offensively. A complete team effort led to a satisfying win as they start a 4-game road trip. Myself and DeMichael Cole will be with you on the post-game edition of the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. Have a great night. Go Grizzlies. Welcome back, Dillon.
The Magic pushed things to overtime against the 76ers, but just couldn't quite finish it out. Locked On Magic, looking on the bright side in this rebuilding season.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, as the Orlando Magic fall in overtime to the Philadelphia 76ers. In some ways, this is a really disappointing loss. Anytime you lose in overtime and have a chance to win the game and you miss it at the free throw line, or chance to extend the game, miss it at the free throw line, or have a shot blocked and don't really get a good opportunity to tie the game, you're certainly disappointed. And this is a young team still making a lot of young mistakes and learning how to win games, especially close games. The Magic have the fewest clutch wins in the league this season. But this is also a game that shows how good the Magic have become become and how much better they are since the beginning of the season. This is a game that's sort of a proof of concept that this team can put these pieces together, that they are getting the identity that they want. They're playing tough-nosed defense. They made Joel Embiid work for every point, making him bully and bull his way to the foul line and rely on the referees, which are going to give him the star treatment. They made James Harden work to get to the foul line himself as they just defended so well and built as much as a 17-point lead. Orlando's getting there. They're knocking on the door to something really interesting and really intriguing with this young group. Markelle Fultz is still not playing full minutes, and he makes such a positive impact on the floor. But Orlando's still a young team. They're still learning how to close games out. They're still learning how to win games, and they're still learning what they need to do to win and build their identity. They're getting closer, and this was another step forward. We'll have more coming up on Locked On Magic later on.
Coming up, the Phoenix Suns make a statement. This is Locked On Now NBA. This edition of Locked On Now is brought to you by BetOnline. It's finally that time of the year, gambler's paradise. It's March Madness. Whether it's props, odds, whatever you want to put a bracket in, or you just need ideas, head over to betonline.net. It's the best online gambling site. They have all of your needs covered. So just head over to betonline.net. Welcome back to Locked On Now NBA. I'm Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Now we check out some more action from around the league.
Let's go around the league.
The Phoenix Suns could not have had a hotter start. 48 points in the first quarter against LA, so it was pretty lopsided to say the least. Locked On Suns recaps the win and talks about that bulletin board material from Anthony Davis.
If you've ever wondered whether NBA players look at the internet prior to tip-off, I think we learned our lesson tonight as the Phoenix Suns down the Los Angeles Lakers by double digits. Brendan Clean here with you from Locked On Suns, coming to you live from Footprint Center after a blowout win by the Suns over the Lakers shortly after Anthony Davis said pregame that his injury in Game 4 of last year's first-round series was the reason that the Lakers lost that series, that they gave it away, that the Suns were basically lucky to come away with a win in that first round. Agree or disagree, I think it's fair to say this Suns team saw that heading in. They were up 26 after the first quarter with a 48-point quarter. Devin Booker, 30 points in 32 minutes, a near triple-double, and the Suns reel off a massive win, both for their psyches and just to continue winning without Chris Paul. For more on these Suns, listen to Locked On Suns wherever you get your podcasts.
It was an embarrassing showing all around for the Lakers in Phoenix. They got worked. LeBron led all scorers with 31 points, but that wasn't going to do it. Locked On Lakers breaks down a game that basically was over as soon as it started.
This is Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers lose 141-11 to the Suns in Phoenix, a game that was basically over before it started. The Lakers got more than doubled up in the first quarter, 48-22. They missed on 7 straight possessions during the first quarter. They missed their first 7 threes, 7 turnovers for 11 points surrendered, 7 a very unlucky number in this game, 17 fast break points given up in that quarter, 24 points in the paint. And you are not going to come back against a team as good as Phoenix in their building on national TV or local TV or cable access TV. It ain't happening. There was some guarded optimism before the game from both Frank Vogel and Anthony Davis about AD being able to return before season's end, and clearly he is missed, although it may already be too late for any real sustained effect. A lot more to get into, so make sure that you are subscribing to the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel and that you are making Locked On Lakers your first listen wherever you get your podcasts.
That's a wrap for this edition of Locked On Now NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you check out Locked On NBA and your team's Locked On podcasts as well. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Now.